I think interpersonal neurobiology is really helpful because we bring in all the different disciplines and say, let's get together and have a common ground, a consilience. And so then you go, well, if you realize that making things happen is actually a source of trauma, and the fretting that everyone has because they're given the lie of a separate self, we don't even know it's a lie, you know. And so then we live it, and then people feel unhappy, unhealthy, they feel unfulfilled, they feel like something's not right, they feel not whole, and they have no idea why. So they figure, well, yeah, I need to get more stuff or control more things or get a bigger bank account or have more power or whatever. And all of this is driven without any kind of fulfillment. And so you then stop and say, hold on a second. All that frenetic activity that leads to racism and that leads to destruction of the planet is actually, it's a lose-lose situation. So we pause, and then we say, well, let's get fundamental and let's look at a simple 4-letter word, self. And if we reconceptualize and expand what we mean by that linguistic term. So sure, it has to do with subjective experience that you have. It has to do with your perspective, and it has to do with your agency. That's SPA of self, subjective experience, perspective, agency. You could put it in the body alone, and that's what modern culture did. But what if you say, I want to take the sensation, perspective, and agency of the other? And that's called empathy, And then what if I then feel the suffering and want to care? And that's compassion. What if I'm grateful for other people's well-being and how they are? Well, that's the gratitude. And the awe is defined as this sense of I'm confronted with something much larger than a private self and with meaning much greater than just survival. So it's very spiritual in the sense of people defining spirituality that way. And then you go, whoa, so what if we don't do what a lot of teachings are saying get rid of the self, which I think has led to this kind of fight, because some contemplative teachings would say there is no self. And then someone in a body says, well, I think I have a self. No, you're dualistic, they'll say. You have no self. Well, how can I have no self if my self says I don't agree with you? What's with that? So the notion there is not to get rid of the self, but actually expand the self. And that's what I'm hoping the conversation can move us toward in modern times, because we don't have that much time to actually turn this boat in a different direction, but we can, the boat of humanity and its impact on life on Earth.
Social justice framework through this lens of interpersonal neurobiology is this idea of a collective nervous system. And I like to talk about the idea of a collective nervous system because I think that it brings up this vision and understanding of how it is that we're all interconnected, right? Like I'm having these experiences of processing and metabolizing my experiences of being in this body and experiencing this like self, right, in my nervous system. But then my experiences in my nervous system, what I'm metabolizing, whether that be trauma or not, is also connected to the three of you. Here, the three of us here create a collective nervous system, and we are sharing all kinds of energy and information amongst us in this conversation. And then that is expanding out to all of the beings who are listening to us in this conversation. And I like to use it. It's almost like a thought experiment. If a collective nervous system were a reality that could be measured, then we could talk about how, yes, collective trauma is spread across that collective nervous system, but we can also be intentionally, right, tapping into what Dan is talking about. We can be intentionally tapping into compassion and gratitude and awe and sharing the energy and information of that throughout our collective nervous system to see how it transforms our capacity to be a species of beings who are offering up greater stability, sustainability, who are offering up healing, who are actually assisting in the evolution of the planet. rather than assisting in its destruction.